Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to part 2 of the special edition of Real Talk. Today I've been talking to two very eminent guests, Bana Gora from the Brushwood Muslim Women's Council and Sadia, who's been here before my program, about their recent trip to Masjid al-Aqsa and some of the challenges and the trials and tribulations that they went through once they were there, and once the war started between Israel and Iran, and how they needed to escape from Israel, particularly Jerusalem, to try and get back into the United Kingdom. So let me turn to that, Bana and Sadia. I mean, obviously you had to evacuate. As you said, you had to go via Jordan because Egypt. Now I know 2 weeks ago I had a guest here who actually went about 8 weeks ago, and they had to evacuate and they had to come through Egypt. It took them nearly 12 hours to get from Tel Aviv to Al-Sham, Sharm el-Sheikh, and it was a nightmare journey for them as well. So anyway, you went to Jordan, so you had to go through all these crossings, but you're saying you fast-tracked to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Once you got to Jordan, did you have any support from our government waiting there for you, or any support at all? Because I've heard that people like France and Germany or even India had their representatives in Jordan, helping and guiding people from their countries.
So as soon as we we went through the 3 different crossings, which took what should have taken about 40 minutes. I think it took us almost 8 hours to get through those crossings. Alhamdulillah, we finally got into Jordan, and you could feel that sense of relief amongst the entire group. As soon as we crossed the border, I received a phone call from the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office, the FCDO, saying, have you crossed the border? Yes, we've crossed the border. Right, we'll call you when you get to the hotel. This is a priority where, you've got our support. So we were hopeful. We thought, right, we've got our Foreign Office that will be helping us. Waited for a phone call that evening, nothing.
All right.
Following day, we received a phone call from the Foreign Office saying exactly what I said earlier, that unless missiles are falling on you, apart from emotional support, there's very little we can do.
You're joking.
While the missiles were still flying above our heads, being intercepted in Jordan, the sirens were going off probably every 2 hours. We had a traumatized group, and we've got a Foreign Office, Foreign Office saying we can't do anything else to help you. So then we decided, we had an emergency briefing, and we decided to try and get everybody to book their tickets and disperse from there. Whichever country you can go to, just get your tickets, because this is getting, again, too close for comfort. So as and Sadia will tell you about the nightmare that she had trying to book the tickets, as soon as we'd try and get into the booking form, submit the payment for the tickets.
So you were hoping to get away from
Jordan to Jeddah.
Jordan to
we found
straight to the UK? Or
no, there were no direct flights.
Okay, there were no direct flights.
So the quickest one for us was to Jeddah, and from Jeddah to the UK.
Right, okay.
So as we're processing the payment for, say, a group of 13, we're in clusters, the payment starts shooting up. Sorry, this payment has now gone up to 1,500.
Wow.
5 seconds later, 10 seconds later, this payment is now 3,000. And then when it hit 5,000, then the ticket price hit 7,000. I asked Sadia, I said, just stop. Let's take
7,000
That was per person.
per person.
Per person. Just a one-way ticket.
So if you work your maths out, for 46 people,
my goodness.
we would have been looking at 322.
Which airlines were these?
Royal Jordanian.
This was, we had Royal Jordanian. There was one called Flyer Deal, which is the Saudi kind of budget airline. So even the budget airlines, the pricing was just ridiculous. It was very, very difficult.
They were actually on human misery.
Absolutely,
People
making money.
They were making money on people who are in a trapped situation. This is totally disrespectful. And
the last thing
I can't even think of the word that I want to mention.
So, Sadia, do you want to just tell a little bit about your...
Yeah, so it was horrendous trying to book the flights. Initially they'd cancelled, then we tried to book them again, then they were cancelled. And as Bana said, the prices were just extortionate. And it was unbelievable going through the situation that we did, and then to think that they were, as you said, trying to make money out of such a difficult situation. So it took a long time. In our group, obviously not everybody is literate when it comes to booking flights and things like that, so a lot of it was...
struggle on IT. I'm absolutely useless on IT.
We had Pakistani aunties who don't...
they were reliant on us to do things. So we were the ones that were actually trying to book them. So imagine booking one ticket, but then booking 16 tickets. So you can imagine how long it took. It took nearly all day. we'd booked 2 nights in Jordan because of this, because we weren't sure when we'd be able to leave. And it actually worked out well that we did have those extra couple of days, because we were able to
How
take
easy
time
was
and
it
book
for
the
you to
flights.
find accommodation in Jordan, having, you know,
Again, we would have,
emergency evacuation from
we
Tel
would
Aviv?
not have even managed to have
Yeah.
got a hotel in Jordan. It's because our ground team through Zavil
Yeah.
Travels had contacts,
Right.
They
and
were
they
able to
managed to
sort it.
accommodate us in 17 rooms. So
Right.
people
Yeah.
had to share, triple share, but as long as we were all
As long as
together.
you're out of the
And
fire.
out of
Everything
the
was
fire.
organised.
Fire
But it
zone,
felt like
By
we
the
were
time
out.
we got there,
Yeah,
sorry.
but it felt like we were out of the fire, straight into the fire in Jordan.
Right.
So what we felt was a safe passage did not feel like safe
So
passage.
you tried to book tickets from Jordan to Jeddah to try and get over to the
Yes.
UK. So you went through. I mean, this is despicable, you know, behaviour by the airlines.
It was. It wasn't what we expected at all. I mean, alhamdulillah, we did in the end manage
Right.
to find reasonable tickets. But even then, it took a long time. Some people ended up getting flights to Riyadh. Some, most of them were Jeddah, and then we had some paying extortionate amounts to get to Istanbul. So it was just unbelievable that this was happening at such a difficult time.
So your group ended up in Jeddah, didn't they?
Yes, our subgroup, so the Bradford group, we went via Jeddah, so we were
Right.
together.
And I believe that experience was also a nightmarish experience.
It was.
It was beyond
Oh,
a nightmare.
yes.
So we obviously checked online. We booked the tickets online. There was no mention of a visa because we were in transit technically. So we arrived with our group, and they refused to let us go out and get our baggage unless we pay £110 each for a visa to just go out of the terminal,
Jeddah Airport.
Jeddah Airport,
Airport.
and just come back to go into the next terminal. So you've got a group you work again. We're looking at.
Can you just repeat that? They're asking you to pay £110.
We
you
had
said.
to. They refused to let us step outside the airport onto Saudi soil unless
Without
we
buying a
paid
visa.
£110
But
each.
your luggage was somewhere else, was it?
Our luggage was being boarded onto the flights to Gatwick from
Right.
Wizz Air.
Right. Okay.
So then they messed us about for. We had a short time frame to catch the next flight. They kept us sitting there for over 3 hours, 3 hours and 45 minutes. So first of all, I refused to buy visas for the whole group. I said, this is absolutely extortion, unheard of. We've just come from a war zone. You're our Muslim brothers and sisters. Why are you behaving like this? So when I made a bit of noise, then the head of immigration came over. Okay, we'll allow you to get a tourist visa, which is £35. But you have to fill the forms in yourself. So Saudi is trying to fill the forms in. It says you will get a decision in 24 hours.
Oh my.
Which was no use
goodness.
to us, of
Which
course.
was no use. So we went back to them. Then we said, look, you must have a waiver visa because look at the circumstances we're travelling under. Okay, we'll try and arrange transport to get you to the next terminal, but we have to do it so you have to stay with an official because you're on our soil then without a visa. To negotiate this, they sent us from one department to the other. They were just playing games
These
with
are
us.
Saudi Muslims
Saudi
Yes.
Muslims.
who are causing this sort of problem.
Who were well aware of what we'd been through.
Yeah.
At one point, out sheer frustration when the final official came up to me, and by this point, Saudi and I had agreed, we're just going to get the visas, we can deal with the costs later. We cannot afford to miss this flight. We had women that were on the verge of breakdowns, nervous breakdowns, mental
not surprised.
breakdowns. We thought we just need to get them home to safety. So the final official that came up to me, immigration official, he was very forceful. He said, you have three options. You either go back to Jordan, you sit in the
Oh, my
airport,
goodness.
sit in the airport all night, we don't care. You buy the visa that step onto our Saudi soil, otherwise we won't let you. I said, what about your waiver visa? It doesn't work in conjunction with Wizz Air. They're a different UK terminal. So they used every excuse. So anyway, we managed to get the visas, which in itself was a nightmare.
It was ridiculous.
And then once we'd processed the £100 visa, you have to take out additional insurance, which was the additional £10 each, otherwise they wouldn't process the visa. We got the visas, all the group had managed to get out of the airport to safety, the clock's ticking, they won't allow me out. So I look around me.
Well, they must have taken a fancy to you.
No, it was nothing
Keep you there.
It was nothing to do with taking a fancy. At one point, I did lose my temper and I flung my hands in the air. And I said, Wallahi, you Saudis are worse than the Israelis.
Right.
And that got picked up on all the security cameras.
Oh, I see.
So the next thing I know, I've got 10 security guards, immigration officers stood around me in a circle, screaming at me, shouting at me, telling me to lower my gaze, lower my voice. Who do you think you're shouting at? This is our Saudi soil. You are not in England. Thankfully, I know when to be quiet and when to speak, and I realised that very quickly. I was outnumbered. They had weapons I had 10 guns pointing at me. I mean, intimidation tactics at its best.
Good gracious.
At that point, I just looked down at my feet and I just made a silent dua. Ya Rab, if you're going to take me back with my team. I do not want to spend the night in a detention centre here. And then I heard the buzzer go, the glass screen went forward, and I just heard this barrage of, get out of our country, don't come back. And they're just screaming and shouting behind me. I walked quite fast and I managed to exit.
Surprised.
But this shook me up.
This is Saudi.
This is Muslim brothers in Saudi Arabia. I was appalled.
The people you would hope that, mind you, we've seen the Saudis' behavior over the last few years, particularly the last 12 months, when it comes to the people in Gaza and Palestine. And I must say, although if it wasn't for the command of Allah that we should go for Umrah and Hajj to Saudi Arabia, the two holiest places in the world, I would never set foot in Saudi Arabia if I could help it.
Brother, I completely agree with you, and I think we're both
I think
the same.
most people would agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that Allah has placed, or fortunate for the people of Saudi that these two holy places there. But over the years, I've been there a few times, and I absolutely despise the behavior that I've encountered at the airport by Saudi officials. They don't treat you as human beings as far as I'm concerned. And this is an experience that many people, particularly from the Asian subcontinent, have experienced. And if there's anybody listening from Saudi Arabia, this is a plea to you that please become Muslims for once in your life when people turned up to the south, to your soil, because the Prophet ﷺ was an example of Mehman Nawazi, or how you treat your guests. I understand some of the challenges that the Saudi people face, particularly when you have to cater for 2-3 million people during the peak season of Hajj. And I know the challenges that any organization would have to go through, but sometimes you bring some of these problems amongst yourself. And this issue about Bukra, when I've been there, come tomorrow. They never do anything on time. So I mean I'll condemn the behavior of the Saudis perpetrator on you anytime, and I'm happy to do so. But I mean, so you finally managed to get away.
No, so we managed to get out of the terminal after purchasing all these visas for the whole group. Luckily, 13 members of the group had taken advantage of the fact that we'd landed in Jeddah, so they decided to go and do an Umrah.
Oh, right.
And do the 3 harams, technically. So mashallah, I wanted to go with them, but I had the responsibility of bringing the group back. So we managed to get out of the terminal. The Saudi taxi drivers were very unhelpful to get us to the next terminal, which we didn't realise, the Wizz Air terminal is not a Saudi terminal, so it's 25 minutes away from the airport. We've got less than 2 hours now to get to that terminal and catch that flight. We managed to find taxis and Ubers and get the whole group out of there. Our taxi driver, who's in an 8-seater taxi, runs out of electric.
You're joking.
So then we had to detour to a petrol station. Anyway, we managed to find some electric, got the car ready, got to the airport just in the nick of time. I have never been in my life, and alhamdulillah, I've travelled extensively. I have never been in such a congested airport where the stench, it wasn't a smell, the stench of perspiration was it was awful, because people were fleeing from every possible country you can imagine from there. They were just wanting to get out. So we get to the airport, we finally make it to the desk, and the Wizz Air team turn around and say, you haven't booked online, therefore that's another £50 per person, otherwise you can't get on the plane. At this point, we were done arguing. We're like, okay, how much money do you need? We paid. We managed to get through into the lounge. This was the bit where that was scary, because right in front of our eyes, the flights were being cancelled, one after the other after the other. The London flight to Gatwick, which was, I think, 20 minutes before ours, got cancelled in front of our eyes. At this point, we just told the group, just make dua. If not, we'll have to go maybe make our way back to Jordan again. But we make plans, Allah Ta'ala makes plans, and He wanted us back. Say salamat.
So all members of your team and your group are back.
Say salamat and shukr alhamdulillah.
And how are the other people doing who were part of your wider family when you were there?
I think there's been a lot of trauma in the group. They've started writing and expressing how they're feeling. So we do.
I think it's a very good tactic then.
So we do hope to pull all of this together very quickly in quick time and get a book out there, so people can hear the direct experiences of, our elders, our youngsters, you know, the whole spectrum of Muslims that were travelling. And again, we have to ask the question, number one, were we not evacuated and given safe passage because we're Muslim British nationals? Because
Was there any support from the UK government in Jeddah for you?
none whatsoever, nothing.
None whatsoever
Nothing,
at all?
Nothing.
Nothing at all throughout our trip, really.
Nothing.
Because that, again, that shows that it seems like our government completely abandoned people like you in this very difficult and challenging situation.
Well, we witnessed with our own eyes Israeli nationals, Israeli visitors, non-Muslims were being evacuated, were being given assistance by the army, by the IDF soldiers. Whereas the Muslims, whoever was visibly Muslim, with a scarf on their head, with a hat on, with a beard, they weren't interested.
So these are IDF soldiers themselves
That themselves
were
help
actually helping
people
other
with their bag,
non-Muslim
with their
tourists.
luggage. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Even
Whereas-
if you look at the press articles that were out at the time, all the press articles were about the Israelis, they were about the non-Muslims. There was one article, I think, that featured Muslims, that's it.
All right.
So it was as if we were invisible there, even though
Right.
we were British.
So have you made representations? I know Naz Shah was at the event last week, but have you made representations, or has she made representations on your behalf to the FCO to complain about the behaviour or the non-support that the FCO is the Foreign Commonwealth Office, that they provided to you?
Both of our Muslim Bradford MPs, mashallah, have tried their best to assist. Naz Shah was with us last week when we came back at an event for women where we fed back our experiences. Nazi's awaiting a letter from me where we're pulling all of this together because there's quite a lot of complaints in there. And she will be making sure that that lands on the right desk.
Right.
So we have our local Muslim MPs support. And whilst we were out there, they did what they could. But again, their hands are tied. There's only so much they can do. They can escalate our information to the Foreign Minister, Hamish Falconer, but then it sits with him. And if he makes the decision that you leave them to their own devices, that's obviously the call that was made.
I mean, to hear that is an appalling statement to hear.
Absolutely.
I mean, regardless whether it's one British citizen or 100 British citizens, it doesn't matter. I mean, look at, some of the other people who've been in trouble in other parts of the country or the world, where they've put all sorts of efforts to try and help those people. So does it go back to what you said earlier? Is it because you have UK Muslims, British Muslims of colour, that you did not get the support? And I hope that is one of the questions that they will be asking, and if anybody from the government is watching this program, I would challenge you to come and answer this question. Why is it that our government failed people from Bradford and the UK who were caught out in this very difficult and challenging situation, that they failed to provide them with any support whatsoever? This is a question that they must answer, should answer, and the Muslim community and the non-Muslim community would want to know. We know that there's troubles over there, and we know that the Foreign Commonwealth Office will advise people not to travel at the moment into that part of the world, but it's not a stop notice as they have done in the past in other places. So, what I would question is, why was it that support was not put in place? I mean, obviously, we're now running out of time. But I mean, what's the next stage for you, the Muslim Women's Council? You said you take groups on a regular basis. I mean, you've been there, you've seen it, this time was very different and very challenging. How would you encourage people to still go if they can?
100%.
And even though under the circumstances very difficult.
Regardless, but obviously be sensible. At the moment, there's a war going on. Israel, there's a ban on any kind of travelling to Israel for 3 months. That may well change because things are changing rapidly. What we would strongly advise from the Muslim Women's Council is, as soon as it's safe to travel, look at your group leaders' risk assessments. Ours was a good risk assessment when we went. And the slogan throughout our trip was, we will return again and again and again. And that's what we advise everybody to do. Don't be put off by the missiles and the war. Go and support our Palestinian brothers and sisters now when they need it the most, when they've got no food, they've got no water, they've got no electric. They're being massacred daily. We've seen this genocide unfold in front of our eyes. Just yesterday, I was reading an article, and it was horrific. And somebody was referring to the recent massacre that took place, 2 days ago, and they likened it to the Squid Games. For those of you that have watched the Squid Games, so making people go to food aid places that are set up there, running for food and killing them whilst they're trying to
while
get
they're trying to
food
get to the food,
for
yes.
their families. Someone said it was red light, green light. These are human lives that we're that are being, you know, after this massacre. I mean, I'm going to liken this to Bosnia. We've got coming up in the next week. The
Srebrenica.
30th anniversary of Srebrenica in Bosnia, in Sarajevo.
11th of July.
Yeah, 11th, that's right. And now, what are we going to do in a year's time? Are we going to sit back and all of us cry over what happened in Gaza? They need our help now.
I'm going to have to, unfortunately, stop you there because we're running out of time. I think with this, as I keep saying, sometimes, you know, I wish the program was much longer. But the key message here is I'm grateful to Allah that all of you are safe and sound, you know, back here, so home. But the key message is, once it's open again, please go. Please go and support the people of Gaza and Palestine, and particularly the West Bank area. Thank you for watching. Inshallah, I'll be with you soon. In the meantime, pray for our people in Gaza and Palestine and around the world as well. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And thank you, the two of you, for coming and making this program what it is. Inshallah, I'll see you soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.